Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today, and we're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Right here from the farm in the Ozarks in Missouri. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. And if you'd like to call, I've got the call screen up, and we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. It looks like the Democrats have a new campaign slogan. Joe and a who. Now, when I was in school, we were taught to spell who with a W. Now they just spell it with 2 letters, H and O, without the W. Looks like we may have 2 narcoleptics in the White House in January. One who sleeps on the job and one who sleeps to get the job. Rich Stevens on the farm today, preparing for winter, gathering food and wood, the things that a farmer does to prepare for the winter. So it's just me today and a couple colts. Tips from my book, Unfinished, Unpublished, and Unavailable. It's not for sale. You can't buy it anywhere. And since Rich mentioned cars, there was an advertisement. This is true, on Craigslist here in Missouri. And the reason I have this particular advertisement for sale, a vehicle for sale, is because our son was asked to help a neighbor find a particular kind of vehicle. So our son was cruising the ads, and he found this. And this is absolutely true. I'm not making this up. Okay. It says sold, so obviously this thing has been sold. But headline for the ad, perfect car for ungrateful millennial or Gen Zer, $1,200 in Ozark, Missouri. Goes on to say, are you looking for the perfect first car for your son, daughter, grandson, or granddaughter? Too bad. This 2002 Chevy Malibu with only 180-some thousand miles on it is sold. With the car's underwhelming appearance and matching mediocre performance, the teenager in your life is bound to build some character and learn some appreciation for riding around in comfort with the family. Are you worried that your 16-year-old might find a quiet place to hook up in the back? Not in this car. The ride is equipped to automatically throw up a red flag when your teen's date opens the passenger side door by making a loud crack. Backseat room, none to speak of. Besides, stop anywhere in this car for more than 90 seconds and risk the air conditioning performance dropping from mediocre to that's making it worse. There's also no chance of funny business in this car while this car is moving, thanks to the cruise on-off toggle no longer toggling. I've been driving this POS for over a year, and my wife has never set foot in it. She didn't even know all these things that I've just shared with you. No, rather she just noticed I tend to use the floorboard like a trash can, which is why I'll be posting photos tomorrow after I've cleaned all the blank out of it. Despite all the setbacks, this car is still running great, which is why I'm asking $1,200. Still a great price, even if you planned to hog tie your arch nemesis, throw him in the trunk, and sink it in a lake. Act now. You don't want that arch nemesis of yours getting to this deal before you. Goes on to say, important edit. Actual miles, 192,807. People have been asking how many owners this vehicle has had. This vehicle has been in my family for 16 years, just as long as your teenager's been in your family. So think about it, because I think the symmetry is beautiful. While cleaning out this car, I found a receipt showing that it has, that in March of 2018, this vehicle earned itself a brand new windshield. So it's got a lot of, a lot of more bugs to smash. This vehicle comes with a little top-off oil and an extra filter in case you want to teach your giftee to change their own oil. While the passenger side mirror glass is not currently attached, it is intact and is in excellent condition and will make a wonderful bonding project for your family. All of the power window locks are functioning, as is the stereo and CD player. This car will pass inspection as is. Bonus, this car comes with a donut. So when your favorite youngster hits that pothole so hard, they can pull over and solve the problem themselves with the help of you over the phone. So that's the Craigslist ad. That's really true. I'm not making that up. Okay. And, this car has been sold, so we all missed it. Okay. So if you'd like to call, we'll pay for the call, as I mentioned previously. And please stick to either questions relating to preparedness that you might have that you think that I might be able to answer. And if you have tips to add to, enhance the ones that I've talked about, or have better tips, we're all ears. And the telephone number is 866-582-9933. Okay, going down my list of things you should consider as we go down the drain. Do you have a manual can opener? Now, the reason I mention that is a manual can opener is an absolute requirement. You know, it used to be that if you bought beer back in the 1960s, 1970s, if you bought a case of beer, sometimes you would be given by the store that sells those kinds of beverages a free can opener. And sometimes they would say Ballantine, Pabst, Schaefer, things like that would be stamped in the can openers. Now, they did get smaller and smaller and smaller over the years, but they could still be had for free. And the can opener had two functions. It would open a bottle cap, like on a bottle of beer, and the other side would have a triangular kind of a punch. Now, this was before pull tab cans. Cans didn't always have pull tabs. You actually had to open them with a can opener. And so if you have a manual can opener, you might find that that's kind of a nice thing to have while you're trying to open cans. And you can actually open a can of soup with one of those with the triangular punch. You have to go all the way around the can, but it can be done. Or you can just perforate half of it, go 180 degrees around the top, and then pry carefully so you don't slice your fingers off that lid of the soup can or the beans or whatever it may happen to be, and pour it into your pan for heating. Okay. So a manual can opener is kind of nice. Now, there's also a manual can opener that with a crank or a knob. And they are used to remove the lids of a can. And that's what we have. We do not have in our house here at the farm one of those electric can openers. We don't have one. Even though we have off-grid power and even though we could operate one, we don't think it's a necessity. So we don't have an electric can opener. You just put the can under it, push down on the lever, and the can goes round and round and round, and the lid gets disconnected. We don't have one of those. So we do have a can opener. It's made by a company called Swing, SWING -A-way, Swing A Way, or Swing Away as they probably say it. And it's a really nice can opener. I don't know how long they last because the ones that we have here have never failed. My grandmother had one, and they have three models. One that you turn the knob. It's kind of like a handle. It's 180 degrees on an axis. Another one with a crank with more leverage. So if you're opening a bigger can, you turn this crank. But it's the same can opener with a different kind of a lever to operate it, swing away. And then there's another one, the deluxe model. If you have big cans in a small kitchen, you can screw it to the wall or the door frame. And you can hook the can on there, turn the crank, and the can will go round and round, not on the counter. So you don't have to support the can at all. By the way, when we open a can, we don't have the kind like my grandmother had that was mounted to the wall. We have the kind, and they're all swing away. They're all same brand. They're all same great technology. Real simple. Really simple. Probably, I'll bet you this technology is 60, 70, 80 years old. Unchanged. When we open a can here at the house, we don't have granite countertops. We don't have marble countertops. We don't have Corian countertops. We have the inexpensive laminate, Wilson Art, or Formica. Those are the two major brands. And that's what we have here at the farmhouse. And so when we open a can, we don't leave the can on the counter and then turn the crank or turn the knob and have the can spin around on the counter, because it scratches the counter. And in 15 years, you would say, boy, I think we need a new counter. Now, all you have to do to prevent all that scratching and wear on your counter is to hold the can up in the air. Now, if it's too heavy, you put it on a towel. And we have a ProPure water filter, one of those canister jobs with the stainless steel spigot. And underneath there, we have a little towel. That's probably, if it were unfolded, probably 8.5 by 11, the size of a piece of paper. And what we leave that folded in half, long ways. So if there's a drip, it doesn't drip on the counter. It drips on the towel, and then it evaporates. And we change the towel often. But if I'm going to open a can, I'll open it right on that towel, which is on the counter. So I don't have to even get a towel. So just a thought about saving your countertop, opening cans, bottles. And what about storing water? Where do you store water? Well, a little bit of discussion about a great way to store water, and it'll help you save on your energy bill at the same time. Okay, so what we do is we have occasion to have soda bottles here at the house. Not very often, but we've saved them for years and years and years. So we still have the ones that we had when people came over and had soda here. You know, the good old days. What we do is we fill those bottles 90% with, first they're washed out really well, okay? And we use the same caps that they came with. They can be a 2-liter, they can be one of those 16.9 ounce, supermarket or Stop and Rob type soda bottles, or 20 ouncer. Fill them 90% with water. Squeeze them so that most, except for maybe the last inch of air, is out of the neck. So they have 90% of the contents. 1 inch of air at the top. You squeezed it so that when it expands, when it freezes, it won't burst. Okay? Then you put it in the freezer. Now, why do you do that? I'll tell you when we come back. Okay, just me today, and Kathy's calling in. Kathy will be with you in just a minute. Let me just finish up with the plastic bottles. So what you can do with these plastic bottles once you put them in the freezer, if what you want to do is minimize the amount of air in the freezer. You want to fill that space up with mass. And the idea is if you have some soda bottles in there, they do a couple different things. One is they keep the cold so your compressor won't be cycling on, off, on, off. And it's those on and off cycles that wear out the compressor the most, and it's hardest on the compressor. And starting the compressor running will take 2 to 3 times the energy of keeping the compressor running. So if you have an empty refrigerator and freezer, in terms of, not filled up pretty well, you will use more energy, and it's harder on the compressor and your energy bill. So the idea is to fill that up and take up some of that airspace of not having food in there with these plastic water bottles, these soda bottles, and they won't freeze. I mean, they won't, when they freeze, they won't crack if you do it the way I said. And what happens is if you go shopping and you, let's say food shopping, and you're going to buy some refrigerated cheese, meats, those kind of things, or frozen foods, you just put some of these soda bottles in that cooler with you, and they will act as ice, and they'll help keep cool what you just bought. Okay? So that's what we do. And also, if there's a situation where you need water and the faucet isn't working, then you can drink that water. Okay? That's why you want to have clean soda bottles, and you want to have good filtered water in there. So that's just a thought. Let's see. Kathy's with us. Kathy, welcome.
Hi, Vince. Good morning. How are you?
Very well. And you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you.
You got some tips for us.
I had a couple things that I didn't mention on Friday, and I thought it might be helpful to people. Menards had anchor hocking canning jars, and when I looked online, they had some in the store, and they were very reasonable. They had quarts and pints. They didn't have a lot, but at the time when I looked, there was probably half a dozen of each in the store. So I don't know if people are going to be out in there doing a project and they have to go, then maybe they could check there. And they were reasonable. I think the quarts were, $12 or $13, something like that. They weren't too bad. The other thing is they have a good price on their vinegar too, and they did have some there. Well, I hadn't gone for a couple of weeks, but when I went a couple of weeks ago, I picked up a couple more gallons because they did have it. It was $2.69, I believe, for a gallon. So I use a lot of vinegar in cleaning. I use it in place of my fabric softener, so I do go through it quite a bit.
Kathy, have you noticed that red wine vinegar, is not available as much as it used to be? I'm talking about years ago. Have you noticed that?
I do use it for making certain salad dressings and certain, like, pasta salads and things like that. But I have had some in my stock downstairs, so I haven't looked, Vince. Are you finding it hard to find?
Yeah. And red vinegar is, made from grapes. Apple cider vinegar is made from apples, and distilled vinegar is made from I don't know what, and it's distilled so that all of the solids and the colors are left behind, and you have white vinegar or clear vinegar. But I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned vinegar, do you use vinegar in the shower or bathtub, on the tile to prevent mold?
I do, Vince, and I do clean it with, I clean my tile with, I do like half Dawn and half vinegar, sometimes a little more vinegar than Dawn, but I try to get it 50-50, and I'll spray it on there and let it set for 5 or 10 minutes. I kind of rub it all around, and then I go in and with a sponge with the kind that is a non-scratch surface on the other side, sponge on one side, and then like a little scratchy pad on the other. And it does do a pretty good job of getting the mold and scum off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it does. It does, because that white stuff, I'm not talking about the mold, but that white stuff is the lime or the hard components of hard water. And with the soap, it's almost like a glue and it sticks to the tile. But it gets dissolved with the acid, the 5% acid, which is in the vinegar. She called in from Ohio. Kathy's a USA Prepares instructor. She's a domestic engineer, as I refer to her. She's always teaching us how to save money. Kathy, you found that there were some anchor hocking canning jars available for $12 or $13, I believe you said. Now, that is sounds like a good deal right at the moment, but that's still about 25% higher in cost than they were in the good old days, let's say January or December, right?
Oh, yeah, Vince. They've gone up quite a bit. I've seen them online for $30, $40, $50, and the lids you can't find anywhere. Mm-hmm. They say they can't produce them because lack of raw materials and demand. So I just can't find them anywhere.
Yeah, we can't either. We were able to get some, we knew this was coming. We talked about this. You and I were on the air and we talked about it. We warned our class that, if they're going to do it, they need to do it, jump on it. And, some did. So good for them. Kathy, do you have, any other tips you want to share with us? Cause I've got something I'd like to share with you.
Oh, go ahead, Vince. And I have a couple small ones after that, but you go ahead.
Okay. So, Kathy, I don't mean to get personal, but do you have one of those outdoor grills that, you grill hamburgers and hot dogs and things on,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's something I'd like to share with the class. We do too. And there are a couple things about this. The one I wanted to focus on with you at the moment is these propane tanks. And they are known as propane cylinders, and you can do one of two things with them. You can refill them, or you can bring them to one of those places like a supermarket or Walmart or lots of places and exchange it. And they hold 20 pounds of propane. So if you want to weigh it, a full tank will be the weight of the tank plus 20 pounds of propane. And what happens is you need to have some airspace for expansion. So if you have that grill in the hot sun, propane is compressed liquid gas. So what happens is they take a gas and they compress it, and then it becomes a liquid. So you could actually pick up that propane tank and you could kind of shake it a little bit and you could say, wow, it's like there's a liquid in there. Well, there is, and it's under pressure. So the gas becomes a liquid when you pressurize it. Well, when you have one of these tanks, you need to make sure that there is some amount of airspace in there for expansion, because liquids don't expand very well. They'll break those jars in the freezer. They'll break the bottles in the freezer, glass bottles, that kind of thing. And they'll break the tank, the propane tank, which could cause an explosion. So these tanks are designed to hold 20 pounds of propane. And then they're full. And then they still have that airspace with 20 pounds of propane in them so that they can expand when the weather's hot or they're in the sun. If you buy a tank and refill it yourself, the person refilling it will put it on a scale and they'll stop at 20 pounds. Then it's full, completely full. Even though it'll hold more, it's not safe to fill it more than that because you need the expansion room. But if you bring your tank in and exchange it, you see those nicely painted tanks, you think, well, it's better than the one I've got. They only fill those to 15 pounds. So you only get 3/4 of the amount of propane that you think you're getting. You don't get the 20 pounds. And it costs more to exchange than it does to bring your tank to the company that has the propane compressor and will fill your tank from their great big propane tank. So I wanted to share that with the class. So it costs more and you get less if you have the exchange tank option, right? Now, if your tank is lousy and you can find a nice one with a new valve, etc., then you might be better off exchanging it. But if you have an old tank that is still good, it'll cost you less to refill your own tank. And the tanks get stamped with the expiration date. So, for example, the companies that regulate how long a tank will last will not let you fill one indefinitely because they have an expiration date and it's stamped on the top of the tank. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Any comments about that, Kathy?
Well, Vince, we always take ours. We've got a place right off a highway. We take ours and get them filled there, but I didn't know that they were less if you just exchange them at like a grocery store or a gas station. Yeah. I didn't know that was a great tip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to mention that because it's not generally known, and they don't say on the signage of those exchange tank cages that get your 3/4 filled tank here. They don't say that. they act as if you're getting a full tank of propane, and you're not. So, anyway, just wanted to share that with the class. What other tips do you have for us, Kathy?
Well, this real quick, we were talking about the vinegar, and I, at one point, and I don't have any now, but I would buy cleaning vinegar for cleaning because the acidity was higher. I haven't been out looking for it, so I don't even know if it's available. It was a little more expensive than regular vinegar, but I saw online there was one made by Harris, and it said it was a 30% acidity. And I don't know if you've ever used it, but I was wondering if that would be something, if you really had a stubborn, like shower scum stain or something like that, if you could use it, or if that would be too strong to clean with.
Okay, I've never used anything more than vinegar diluted to 5%. I've never used it. And I don't know anything about, this 30% vinegar. However, I do have a situation that I'd like to experiment with, and that is we have a barn that has a dirt floor. And because it has a dirt floor, moisture seems to come up through the dirt when there's a lot of rain. And we had like a really serious amount of rain over not recently, but months and months ago. We had a lot of flooding here, so there's a lot of moisture in the ground, and it's still coming up through the barn floor. Well, I want to take all the equipment out of the floor and spray the floor with vinegar to make sure that mold doesn't pop up. I want to kill it. And I want the acidity to be in the dirt floor so that it doesn't want to come back. So I wanted to experiment with that. Now, I've never done it. I don't know if it'll work, but that's something that I want to test. I've never done that, class, so I'm not recommending you try it because I don't know the answer. It just seems to me that I think it'll work. And if I can get 30% vinegar, I'd rather start with that. But I don't know if you can drink 30% vinegar, even diluted to 5%. So I don't know. I've never used it. It sounds like it's an industrial vinegar that may not be suitable for consumption. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. And Vince, you were talking about the refrigerator and the freezer, keeping them full. One of the things that I have done throughout the years is I was at a loved one's home, and I was helping them clean out their refrigerator, and they were moving in. And at the bottom, there's that little, it just looks like a little plastic or metal thing that you pull off. It's got little vents in it. And I could see like dust on there, so I pulled it out, and there was so much dust and dirt that I had a little grocery bag of whatever those people had, the cats or something, and dust. It was black. I don't even know how the refrigerator ran. And at the time, I didn't have time to clean it behind it because they were moving, and I was just trying to get everything in. But I had like a little duster, and I got as much out as I could from underneath. But that, from my understanding, if you keep the back of it and underneath clean, I mean, you have to unplug it and pull it out. But I understand that keeps the life of the refrigerator extended quite a bit.
That's absolutely correct, Kathy. And so here's what we do. There are these rollers that you can get to go under the refrigerator leveling pads. It used to be that refrigerators and freezers came with rolling wheels so that you could roll that refrigerator forward, out of the area where it is. You clean behind it, clean under it, and then roll it right back. Well, they don't come with those anymore. So for about $15 to $17, you can find them on eBay and Amazon. And the stores sell them like Home Depot and Lowe's. So what they have is a whole bunch of wheels. And they're expandable so that they can fit the depth of common refrigerators and freezers. And I bought a set for every piece of refrigeration equipment we have. So we have chest freezers. And we have, in the kitchen, we have a refrigerator, all refrigerator. 17 cubic feet. And right next to it, we have an all freezer, 17 cubic feet. And they match. And one is a left-hand door and one is a right-hand door. So we have them arranged so that the freezer is on the left side, the refrigerator is on the right side, and the doors meet in the middle. And it looks like, it's a real expensive built-in refrigerator system like Sub-Zero or something like that. It's not. They were $750 each, and they're real plain, and they're made by Frigidaire. And they work pretty well. Well, when we designed our kitchen, we designed it so that we could have the refrigerator and the freezer in the kitchen. Now, most people put the freezer in the garage or in the basement. And the reason is because when their house was built, they didn't think about, the architects didn't think about putting a freezer in the kitchen. It just wasn't done. You just had a refrigerator-freezer combination that you'd put in the kitchen. And you'd buy that refrigerator, and there's only one place to put it, or two. That would be in the basement or in the garage. So that was typically what was done. So all of our refrigeration equipment, I'm trying to give you a whole bunch of hints all at the same time. Our refrigeration equipment, the refrigerator and freezer in the kitchen, are on these rollers. And that means that they're jacked up about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. So they sit higher. Now, if you do that, you might not be able to get your refrigerator or freezer in the space you have it. So keep that in mind if you buy this. But what we do is, because our refrigeration equipment's on rollers, we roll it out, clean under it, clean behind it, mop the floor, and then that extra height gives us room to pull that grill off that you're talking about in the front. We pull that off, and we take a vacuum cleaner, and we've got the vacuum cleaner running, and we have like a bristle brush that's like a couple feet long with a handle, and we just gently brush off all of the dust, because we have the dogs and cats and so forth in the house. And we brush that off, and it would be unbearable trying to breathe doing that on the floor. So we have the vacuum pulling in all that dust while we are vacuuming it. And we do it a couple times a year. And you're absolutely right. And I'd like to get back to that black dust that you found. I found the same thing, not at our farm, but somewhere else. We'll be right back. So Kathy called in. What a delightful surprise. Kathy, my understanding from what I think I heard you say was that when you clean out your refrigerator coils, either on the bottom or behind, you do that to prevent the dust is acting as an insulation, and for the heat to be transferred from the coils to the air. And the greater the circulation of the air around those coils is, the more efficient that refrigerator or freezer will operate. Some of the older refrigerator models have the coils in the back, and they're generally on a slight slant. They're not completely vertical. They might kick out at the top a little bit more than at the bottom. And that's so the air flowing through the coils will be more efficient to remove the heat from those coils. The heat that's being removed from the coils was the heat that was inside the box, meaning in the refrigerator or in the freezer. And if I were buying a refrigerator or freezer today, I would want one that has the coils on the back, because there's no motor that needs to blow air over those coils. The coils on the bottom of the refrigerator has a motor and a fan, regardless of who makes it. And the idea is they can use smaller coils, but they can have a fan blow air over them, and they become dust traps, and they get clogged with dust more when they're on the bottom with a fan than if they had the design had the coils on the back of the refrigerator or freezer. That being said, when we clean out the bottom of our refrigerator or freezer in the kitchen, what we find is there's a little bit of dog hair and there's a little bit of cat hair, and there's some tan-colored dust. But you mentioned black dust. And I'm be willing to bet that when you clean out your refrigerator coils in the kitchen, you find tan-colored dust and not black-colored dust. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me explain what I think it is. Now, I experienced exactly what you're talking about, this black dust. Now, you didn't say it was kind of oily, but I'll bet it was. And I'll bet you that the location where that refrigerator was that had this black dust on the coils was in a city or near a city. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how did I know that? How did I know that? Now, we've never talked about this. The reason I knew that was because I believe that the air in the city, and this is like proof, class. If you really want proof that living in a city is dangerous, air quality, etc., it's the trucks and the buses and the heavy diesel equipment that's operating in the cities, going up and down the highways and byways and neighborhoods and all that. That black diesel smoke that you see coming from tractors, tractor trailers, from the exhaust from them, backhoes, bulldozers, all that stuff, garbage trucks, all that equipment, putting that black soot into the air, sneaks its way into the homes and gets under the refrigerator and sticks with this oily kind of dust, which is different from what Kathy and we have here at our farmhouse, where we just have dust, and if you take a vacuum cleaner to it, it'll just pull that dust right off the coils. Whereas this oily dust is a lot harder to get off. It's almost like, it's not, I won't say it's glue, but it's more like glue than it is like air. And is that what you experienced, that if you got on your hands, you actually had to wash your hands with, kind of like if you're working on a car, getting that stuff off your hands, an engine. Is that what you found? Because that's what it is.
Yeah, it was real sticky, and I had to almost shake it off my hands. Plus, I don't know that they ever cleaned it out. I think some people just don't know it, never do it, don't care. But I saw it blowing out just when I was down on my hands and knees. Vince, when I get down, I take a flashlight. My husband's got the big black, I forget the name, Magnum or whatever flashlight.
Mag
and I get down. Yeah, the
Maglite.
That's it. Yeah, and I get down, I have a refrigerator brush, and I have an appliance brush, and I'm careful, but I try to really look at it to see if I can dislodge that. And I'm like you, I've got extensions on my vacuum cleaner. My husband, with a labor of love, put a whole house vacuum cleaner in this house for me, and it really has a lot of suction, and I've got special tools that I can get almost halfway under there with that. So I do get a lot of stuff out, but I think if you just do it, if you can do it every few months, every 6 months at least, you just won't get that buildup in it.
Absolutely correct. So, class, I'm willing to bet, and I am not a betting man, but I'm willing to bet that if you have never cleaned out under your refrigerator, if you have the coils under there, or if you have the coils on the back, that you will be absolutely shocked, if you've never looked, at how much dust is on those coils. And it's costing you a lot extra in electricity, and it's wearing your refrigerator or freezer out much faster than if you vacuumed it. So your homework today, for tonight, is to, you might have to use a Phillips head screwdriver or a flathead screwdriver to unscrew that little grill on the bottom of the refrigerator. Some of them just snap in place. Look up how to do it on yours, and vacuum it. Get that flashlight, and you'll be impressed at how much money you save. We'll be right back. Kathy, did you want to stay with us? I've got some more comments about free refrigeration equipment.
Yeah, just a couple more minutes, Vince. I'll stay through the break.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Kathy's with us. She's in Ohio. And I'd like to talk about freezers, and where are the coils on these chest freezers? Where are they? I'm going to tell you when we come back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. This is Do Radio class. We're not talk radio. We teach you how to do things. Things that just aren't available elsewhere on the dial. Kathy joined us. Kathy called in. What a delightful surprise. And she mentioned cleaning out the refrigerator coils, and she mentioned this black goo, this black oily dust under the refrigerator. And I believe that you'll find that in the cities. Now, that's what you're breathing. That is what's going into your lungs. And if you wonder why people are coughing, that's just one of the reasons. So, Kathy, you mentioned that, let me get to, where are the coils on a chest freezer? And then we'll get into the, whole house vacuum cleaner, because that grabbed my interest, as well as, everything else you've said. So, coils on a chest freezer, they don't have them. What's happened with chest freezers is you need to have some kind of a radiating surface for the air to remove the heat from inside the box. So really what a refrigerator is, it's a heat pump, and it pumps the heat from inside the box. So when you pump the heat out of the inside box, meaning the refrigerator or the freezer, to the outside air, you have to get rid of that heat that is being pumped out. And the coils on the inside of what happens with a chest freezer is the coils are attached mechanically. We'll call it welded. So coils are welded to the inside of the box. And so the inside of the box becomes the surface area for the removal of the heat from inside the box. That's why it gets cold. There are no coils that you can see. They are welded to the sheet metal of the box. And then there's a layer of insulation. Typically it's foam insulation. And the outside layer of the box is the other set of coils, the coils that get hot. That would be the condenser. That's what it's called. Those coils use the skin of the box of the chest freezer to remove the heat. So if you have a chest freezer and you want to know if it's operating and you hear the compressor running, just feel the outside skin of the box, not the lid, but the box itself, the lower, the four sides, and you'll find out that it gets warm. So what you want to do in that case is allow at least a couple inches of air circulation space around the outside skin of the chest freezer. Otherwise, you won't have the surface area to remove the heat, and the compressor will work harder. Now, it's really convenient to lean stuff up against the chest freezer, dog food, cat food, paint, all kinds of stuff. And what that does is it prevents the surface area from distributing the heat that's on that surface area to the outside air around the chest freezer. So I just wanted to share that. The last thing I wanted to talk to Kathy about, since you mentioned, this was the whole house vacuum cleaner. So Kathy, your husband built one for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I think this is worth mentioning.
Well, Vince, about 20-some years ago, we built a house, and we put one in, which was much easier while you were building it. Well, when we moved, he knew how much I liked it, so he put one in a pre-existing home, which I'm sure you know is no easy feat. So he had to run all the plastic pipe, and it's got the motor and the catch, whatever it's called, for all the dirt and the dust to go in. It's down in the basement.
Huh?
And so I like it just because it's convenient, but I feel like I have a lot more power, and I have an outlet. I have 2 outlets in the basement, and I have one in the garage, so I can do the cars or the garage. I can go in there and do all that with that unit. And then I clean it every time we're done. And we use like a little plastic brush, and there's a screen underneath. We take the basin off, and you clean that every time so that the dust doesn't build up in there. But yes, I do love my whole house vacuum.
Okay, so let's talk about the reason why this makes a lot of sense, class. Okay, when we built our house about 15 years ago, we did what Kathy and her husband did the first time when they were building a house. It's way easier to put the plumbing in for a whole house vacuum cleaner system when you're building a house, because you're going to run this 2-inch pipe in between the studs, through the studs, in the basement, up to the second floor if you have one, into the garage, all those kind of things. And you need a place for what's called the power unit. The power unit is the vacuum itself with the motor and the basket for the dust. And there's 2 major kinds, or main types. One uses a bag filter. So think of it like a regular vacuum cleaner with a bag filter, but it's a big bag. It's like 6 gallons. And when you fill that bag up, you just take the bag out and put another bag in. The other kind is called a cyclonic bag-less, no bag type system. And Kathy, which do you have, the bag or no bag?
The no bag.
Yeah, that's what we have. And the reason to consider getting a no-bag system, class, is because you don't have to buy these bags. Now, I don't know what the bags cost, probably several dollars a piece. And we fill those things up like crazy. Well, if we had one. So we have like a 6-gallon bucket. It's kind of a translucent. You can see how much dust is in there. But what we do is we empty it, and you just won't believe how much dust gets accumulated when you have dogs and cats in the house. They seem to bring it in and spread it around. So what's really nice about a whole house vacuum cleaner system, and we built ours for probably less than $400 total. I bought a new power unit with a hose and the power head and the wands and extensions, the whole thing. Someone had it, someone bought a model home in Arkansas, and they put this thing on Craigslist. They couldn't wait to get rid of it. And I think it was like $300. And I had to buy some more pipe and et cetera, and elbows and fittings. So $400 for the whole thing, for the parts. And our son and I installed this when we were building our house, and we roughed it in so that we had everything we needed. And literally, initially, before we found this power unit, we used a shop vac. And we hooked up a shop vac instead of the power unit. And you can do that, and it works. So you just turn that on, and now you have a central vacuum system with a shop vac. And we bought the shop vac for cleaning up while we were building the house. So it's one of these big units. It's like, almost the size of half a garbage can. Big garbage can. That's how big this thing is. So that worked fine for the power unit. And then we found later on this $300 or $350 unit, whatever it happened to be, and it was a great deal. Now, if you want to get one of these installed like Kathy and her husband did after the fact, after the house is built, it's going to be about $8,000. So it's a really expensive proposition later, but it's not so bad if you install it while you're building the house. And the main reason that I like the central vacuum rather than one of these pull-arounds, canister types, is because the canister type and the upright, those are dust relocation devices. They will pick up the dust, they'll put in the bag the big chunks, and the little chunks get distributed throughout the house again. So you never get rid of it with a canister or an upright vacuum. You can't. Because the way the system is designed, it goes right through the motor and comes out the bag. Well, with a central vacuum system, the exhaust for the vacuum is outside. Goes outside. And ours, we have a pipe that goes outside. It's a 2-inch plastic pipe. Power that vacuum on, and out goes all the dust that is not caught by the cyclonic action of the vacuum cleaner power unit. Is that what you have, Kathy? Yours goes outside too?
Yes, Vince. And I totally agree that dust is reduced tremendously. And Vince, the other thing that I have in my kitchen, he put it's called a dustpan, and it's a little flap that you can sweep with a broom, and you open up the flap, and it just automatically sucks all the dirt and dust right there. It's right by my kitchen cupboard where I do all my cooking and chopping, and it's just handy to keep the flour or the whatever you drop or all the debris right where you're cooking. It just sucks it right in, and then you close it with your foot, and it shuts off.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have that. I was thinking about that. What a great idea. But we just use that 35-foot hose. Now, a couple other quick things I'd like to mention. Kathy, do you know the brand name that you bought?
I don't offhand, then.
VacuFlow, maybe?
I think so. Okay,
that's the one.
But I'm not
that's
sure.
The one we have.
I'll check. Yeah.
That's the one we have, and it's a really nice one, and it works very well. But I wanted to mention the Powerheads. The best Powerheads I've ever seen. I'm talking about those beater brushes that you go over carpet with. The best ones I've ever seen were made and sold under the Kenmore brand name, Kenmore, like Sears. And they were made by Panasonic. And they're absolutely positively the best. And if you have a central vacuum system, as Kathy does and as we do, you can adapt easily a Kenmore Powerhead, and I think they're called Power Mates, I think you can adapt that very easily because I bought a couple of them. They're so good that they don't make them like the older ones. So you want one that's about 10 years old or older. And they used to be available for $30 on eBay, just the Powerhead. Now it's more like $50 or $60, but they're the best. And the Chinese ones that come with the vacuum hose and the accessories that you can buy on eBay for, let's say, $200, they're junk. The Powerheads are junk. They will last about a year, pretty much like everything else that the Chinese make. Good for a year, maybe. So the best ones in the world, no question about it, in my mind, are the Kenmore older ones. I just wanted to share that. Any comments, Kathy?
You know, Vince, you made a comment about putting them in afterward, and the reason why we have a central vac is we have a good friend who installs them, and he only installs them in new homes. And he only did 2, and those were his kids, and he would never do another one. I take that back, he did do one for a lady, and it cost a lot to put it in, but he had to drill through the wall, and he left a mark, and he had a man come in and fix it because, you know, when you're drilling through, you just never know where all the studs are and everything. And she ended up suing him because he left a mark on her wall. But he said he would never do another one in a pre-existing home because it was just so difficult to do. So if you are considering one or you're going to build, do it before. Just even if you can't afford the unit, do like Vince did. Just get all the plumbing and everything run while everything's open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what happened with us is we were moving from Virginia to Missouri, and there was a hardware store that was going out of business. I'm talking about a hardware store / lumberyard. So it was a pretty big operation, and they couldn't wait to get rid of all this stuff. So I bought the entire nut and bolt department. That was $1,100. It was like 2 pickup trucks with all the cabinetry and all the compartments, and just to get it home, 2 pickup truck loads, $1,100 with all the nuts, bolts, screws, fast. I got to tell you, class, I find it absolutely fascinating how USA prepares instructors who, many of whom have not met each other before. For example, I've never met Kathy. I've never met her husband. I've never met Gwyneth Isaacs. And there's some other instructors whom I've never met. But the interesting thing is we have these common threads that go through our lives. Kathy was surprised with the black goo under the refrigerator. I was too. That was the first time I saw it, was in a home in the city. First time. I've never seen it since nor before. Kathy and her husband put in a whole house vacuum system. Sounds like they have the same kind that we have. They picked the same ones with the same features and for the same reasons. So it's quite fascinating to me how this happens. Kathy, based on what we talked about with the cleaning the black goo from the coils, would you say that you would be concerned with that family living in that area where that black goo is inside the house? Because I don't think they're smoking up the kitchen and making fires inside, and that soot coming from their efforts. I think it's coming from outside with the trucks and buses and, heavy equipment. Are you concerned about where they're living just based on the air quality?
Yes, I am. And I do know that the people that they bought the house from had 2 long-haired cats. So I do know that was a contributing factor. But yes, I am concerned. They aren't really off of a real busy road, but I'm sure that that's a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't, but we have cats here. We've got long-haired cats, long-haired dogs, short-haired dogs, short-haired cats. We've got it all here. We've got, right outside the studio window, 5 feet away is a pair of cows, that are, cleaning the front lawn for us. They're here, now it's a regular fenced-in area, so they can scratch up against the studio window if they want to. But that's not where this black gooey dust is coming from. It's coming from outside the farmhouse. It's coming from the neighborhood, if you will. It absolutely is. So, yeah, long-haired cats, yeah, absolutely. You'll see some cat hair dander or cat dander and cat hair, yes. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this gooey stuff, and that's not coming from the cats. This gooey Oily stuff does not come from the cats. It comes from, the outside air. And so, class, if you decide that you're going to clean your coils on your refrigerator, freezer, and you have that black goo, and you feel like calling in sometime, next week or this week, I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to hear if you can correlate city dwelling and this black goo with country living and no black goo. Because I've never seen it before, any place I've lived. This is new. Kathy, do you have any other comments that you'd like to share with us?
Vince, I only have one other thing, and it's off of a on a completely different direction. But actually, there was two things. You had talked about putting something down on the counter, and I do the same thing if I'm using like a bowl or something that is heavy, or I'm mixing something. I have a silicone hot pad, and it will stick right to the counter. It won't move around, and that way I don't scratch it. But you could use a towel or a different kind of hot pad, but I like the silicone because it just sticks to it, and I don't worry about the moving around when I'm trying to blend something or mix something. And the only other thing, Vince, and then I will let you go, is there's something called a brown sugar saver. And they're little terracotta clay tiles. And you put them in water. They're not that expensive. I got mine, a year ago. They were like $6 for maybe $15 online. But you put them in water, you soak them for like 15 minutes, and you dry them. You can put them in brown sugar, like if you have bagels in an airtight container, or cookies or crackers or things that tend to go stale. And then all you have to do is, if every week or two, just put them in water again, and it draws the moisture out, so your crackers and your brown sugar don't go stale, or your brown sugar doesn't get hard. And it really does work very well.
Interesting thought. And that's something that we have not experimented with, but it's something that I'll mention to Mrs. Finelli after the broadcast. Maybe right now at the bottom of the hour break. Kathy, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, that's all. Thank you, Vince. Have a good day.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. All right, we're back. And Jean, are you in Kentucky, Jean?
Yes.
How are you?
Oh, fine. I got a comment about Central Vax. This is our third house that we put one in. First house we lived in for years, and we put a Kenmore in. And then I guess it's still there, the idiot that bought it. Hopefully he can left it there. And then the second one's at the lake house, and it's a new tone. It was a floor model, so we got that cheap. These are all put in after the house was built. And the third one is a GE brand. I bought it at a thrift store. Brand new floor model. And I called GE. They know nothing really about it, and I hate it because it's made in the 60s. It's got paper with it, but it's of course, it's got the canister you empty. Of course, they all did. But it's got this stupid flannel bag over the motor, and I don't know how to take it off. And to clean it, you have to take a shop vac to clean it. So you have to use a vacuum cleaner to clean the bag. It's the stupidest idea whoever designed this.
Yeah. No, well, here's why they do that. The problem with a central vacuum system is it picks up a lot of dirt and it flows a lot of air. It flows more than a canister or an upright, right? And because the dirt is so abrasive, it's picking up dirt that comes off our shoes, okay? Dirt that the animals have on their paws, that kind of thing. So the dirt is abrasive. And when it gets into the motor of the vacuum itself, the bearings get torn up by this abrasive dust and dirt, these very fine particles. It's literally abrasive. And it tears up the bearings. So to prevent that, they put this flannel bag over the motor area so that that dust doesn't get into the motor's bearings. That's why they do that.
Stupid.
So it's a protective device, but it's also a nuisance.
Oh, my goodness. I had no idea. When I bought this, I wish I let the other couple that was looking at it buy. It was only like $30. But, my goodness, I mean, it gets it all my face and that, when I crawl under lean under the stairwell to clean it. Oh, but none of my other units ever had that. I mean, it just had a little place and you could take a brush and you take something down. I forgot what I used to do, you know. But this thing, oh my goodness, I wish I knew how to take that flannel bag off. I talked to a vacuum cleaner guy in Louisville, and he supposed to got back to me, never did, because I'd love to be able to replace it permanently. I'll be able to way to take it off, so I don't have to stand there with the central vacuum.
You can always replace the central vac, power unit. It's going to be expensive, but it can be done. And the kind to get simply is the cyclonic, CYCLONIC,
third one,
without the bag. That's the way to go.
Yeah,
it really
but I
is.
had
Now,
no idea this thing had a stupid bag.
Yeah. Now, when we clean ours out, it has this 6-gallon, it's like a big waste paper basket.
Yeah.
That's how big this thing is.
Yeah.
And, what we do is we have a board. I put a board out there for Mrs. Finelli if she's going to do it or I'm going to do it. And it's like, let's say 2 feet long. And it's 1 inch by 1 inch by 2 feet long. And we tap the side of the bucket that catches the dust. Tap, 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 tap. And all the dust will fall down that is above, in the upper regions of this Powerhead unit. Mm-hmm. We tap it all around it and it falls down into the bucket. And then we wear a respirator mask, one of these N95 type masks when we take it off because it's messy, or it could be messy. Yeah, so we do it slowly and it works great. Then we dump it into a big trash bag.
Yeah.
Put it.
I mean, I used to be able to walk out with the other ones outside and, I do a little bit on the inside and reach up under and unscrew something and take this little thing down. But this one is a royal pain. Like I said, no idea it was like this. And that heavy yellow flannel bag. I mean, I wish, like I said, I could take it off and replace it with something that's easy to clean because it about killed me when I cleaned it not too long ago. I thought I was going to die.
Now, is it? Yeah. Well, that's why we wear the mask. Now, is this bag a reusable bag?
I don't know.
Holds
I don't know how
all of the
take
dust?
it off. It's like I said, it's a heavy flannel bag that protects the motor.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know if I'll ever get my husband to look at it again or not,
I just looked up, during the break, I looked up the Powerheads. You've got a Powerhead for carpeting?
No, I had years ago. I don't use all that. I don't have carpeting. I just use the regular floor brushes. Okay.
Well, I looked it up. Now, I was able to buy ours for $30 or $40. Mm-hmm. I bought a couple of them in the past. And these are old. These are like 10 years old. And they're the best ones. And if you go to eBay and you type in Kenmore, Power Mate, Kenmore Power Mate, Whisper Belt, WHISPER belt. So it's 5 words. Kenmore Power Mate, MATE, Whisper Belt. 5 words.
I'm probably 30 years old sitting in a closet somewhere. Now, the second ones I like better were the Turbo Cats. They ran off of they didn't have to have the separate plug, the plug into. They, I think I sent away and got them from VacuFlow. I forgot, but they really worked well.
They run off the vacuum.
I don't use any of those anymore because I don't want to have carpeting. I just got hardwood floors and tile. But I just want to make that comment. I wish somebody could take this thing back. I'd love to know how many they sold. They didn't even really have much records on it because it was made in the 60s, and it must have said it either GE somewhere or some shop somewhere just sitting there, not being used, Didn't have a speck of dust on it. But whoever designed it, it's engineers. They probably never had to
the guys that designed that in the 60s are the same guys that designed the nuclear reactor for Fukushima.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard you talk about that.
All GE products. All right. So anyway, back to this Kenmore Whisper Belt Power Mate. I'm looking at one used. Now this is probably 20 years old.
That's probably older than that.
$50 plus $50 shipping.
Did it run off?
So what I'm saying is
plug into the another cord that ran into the. I forgot. Yeah. But I have no need for that.
If you're going to do it, if you're going to use it. If you can use it for carpeting, that's really the way to go.
I bought it years ago. Yeah, when the first house had carpeting. Yeah, so I took it out.
Yeah. So if you have carpeting, that's the thing to get. And typically, I was able to buy them in the $30 neighborhood shipped, and now they're $100. And they're even older than when I bought them.
Yeah. Because I never want to use them. But the Turbo Cat, I really like the Turbo Cats. I've ended up buying like 2 or 3 of those. But they're a little bulkier. But they, like I said, they just ran off of the vacuum cleaner itself, so you didn't have to do the separate little plug-in thing, you know. So that was really great. So I don't know if they make them anymore or not, but I know I've got one sitting at the lake, and he probably never uses because we don't have any kind of carpeting, you know. So I just want to make that comment.
Okay. Well, hey, Gene, thanks so much.
And thank y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. That was Gene in Kentucky. So, class, if you decide you want one of these PowerMate units, you'll probably find that you can buy a whole vacuum cleaner, a Kenmore used vacuum cleaner, canister type, that comes with the vacuum, let's say a 6 or 7 foot hose, the wands, the extension, and the power head. And you might be able to find that for about $100. And that would be about the same price as just the power head. So if you can find one locally, I suggest that's what you do. Okay. Test it, make sure it works, but it is absolutely the best. And literally, it was made by Panasonic, and I don't think anyone has improved on it. So we bought a couple. I wanted to make sure that I knew that they were going to go out of production. I knew that Kenmore was failing, with Sears. So I wanted to make sure Mrs. Finelli had a couple of them, and they're used, and we bought them used, and they really work great. All right, next thing, we're talking about propane tanks. So when things get even worse, and you want to cook outside, do you have a grill? When you buy an outdoor grill, a barbecue grill, there are a couple of things that I think are important. Sometimes they're made with a steel base, and they're going to rust. Sometimes they're made with a steel porcelain-covered top. They rust. Sometimes they're made with a steel burner. They rust. So the best burners, what I would look for if I were buying one, the last time I bought one, it was about $100, $99 plus tax. Bought it in Virginia. And I bought it at Sam's Club. It was $100 plus, maybe 5% tax back then. And I still have it. So it's probably 25 years old. I'm thinking that's pretty close. And I wanted one that had a cast aluminum head. So the area where the burner is cast aluminum. The lid is hinged, it's cast aluminum. And it's still in perfect shape. Now, of course, the paint that was on it, the black paint has kind of faded and flaked off in areas. But in terms of durability, it's all there. It's still there. And it works pretty much as well now as it did 25 years ago. Because I got one with a burner that is made out of stainless steel. The stainless steel burners are second to best. They're not the best. The best is cast iron. But no one makes them out of cast iron, I don't think, anymore. They make them out of a cheap aluminized steel, which is going to rust. And when it does, you're going to need a new burner. Now, how much is a new burner? Well, I looked up the price of a burner for our old 25-year-old, and I think it's Duquesne is the brand. And I think they spelled Duquesne, it doesn't look like Duquesne. Duquesne is spelled looking like Duquesne, and it's also spelled like D-U-K-A-N-E, different spelling for the same pronunciation. I believe it's D-U-K-A-N-E, or close to that. I looked up the price of the replacement burners. Now, these are tubes with little holes drilled in them. About $100. That's what we paid for the entire grill. So the cost of parts has gone up. So what I did was it wasn't burning quite properly. So after 25 years, I took the burners out to look at them, and I soaked them in sudsy water because they had some burned-on goo. And I brushed them with a wire brush, and I used a sharp object to poke through any of the holes that were encrusted. And it's like almost perfect. Close enough for me, like 99, 98% perfect. That's good enough for me. And it works great. So what you look for in a grill is, in my opinion, is cast aluminum head and either cast iron or stainless steel burners. Now, some burners used to be made out of brass. When you think, well, brass, that's pretty good, right? Well, the problem is brass is made out of two metals. One is copper, and that's okay. The other's lead. That's not okay. because the lead will volatilize into your food. So that's why cast iron makes sense, and that's why stainless steel makes sense. So make sure that you at least have stainless steel burners. And you might want to pick up another spare propane tank. Why? Because who knows when you can get them. You can buy them used, but make sure that it has a triangular type knob on the shutoff, because that's the new design. There's an older design that doesn't work with the modern propane grills. And also look up the date stamp code before you go and buy one of these things, and make sure it will be able to be refilled. So look up the coding system, and you'll see it's stamped on the handle of the tank. And that way you'll be able to determine whether you get it refilled or not. We'll be right back. Okay, we've been talking about propane tanks. We've been talking about central vacuuming systems. And on the propane tank, on the handle, you'll see 2 digits for the month and 2 more digits for the year. So, for example, if you see a 05, that would be the month. And if you see 11, that would be the year. Now, the tanks will be refillable for 12 years from the date of manufacturer. And if once inspected, it looks like they're still good, someone will stamp an E after the year. So it'll be a 2-digit year. It could be like 12, for example. And then if there's an E on that, that would mean that it's been extended for another 5 years. So that's it. That's it. They don't last forever because of the potential for rust and explosion and that kind of thing. So you're better off if you have a tank that is still refillable by date. You're better off having it refilled in terms of cost, because you can get it refilled with 20 pounds of propane rather than get an exchange unit that only has 15 pounds of propane in it, and it'll cost you less to have your tank refilled. But, try to keep your tanks in good condition. Don't leave them outside. All right, next thing. We've talked about this in the past, and I can't emphasize how important this is. If you have a well, somewhere on the well pump tank or on the well pump control box, there will be a label that says what that well pump is. It'll have the brand name and the model. And I suggest that you consider, if it works well for you, get one just like that. Get the same brand name and the same model, and have a spare well pump. Because if manufacturing continues to decline, we're going to find that the well pumps are, I'm talking about a submersible well pump, one where the well pump is in the bottom of the well. Okay. 80 feet down, 100 feet down. In ours, it's, our well is, closer to 300 feet. But if you have a well pump down there, it works really hard. And typically they last around 15 years. Ours is 15 years old. I have a spare well pump, and I have a spare well pump tank, and I have spare well pump pipe and wire, and the connectors that you splice the wire with, that, you crimp it on, and it has these plastic shrinkable, heat shrinkable, sleeves. And you put that over a really good wire connection, and that keeps the water from corroding the connection. Because some people, here's how it works. Your well pump has, let's say, 2 feet of wire attached to it. And let's say it's 100 feet down the hole. So then you have roughly 100 feet of wire going down that hole, 10 gauge wire, heavy wire. And somehow that wire is spliced to the 2 feet of wire that comes with the well pump itself. So you splice on these 3 wires. And some people splice them on with wire nuts, which is beyond crazy. And the reason for that is it's sitting in water. So you have 3 dissimilar metals. You have the wire that comes from the well pump, the 2 feet of wire, which is probably typically copper wire that might be tinned. Then you have the wire nut, which is typically steel, that might be nickel or chromium plated or cadmium plated or nickel cadmium plated. And then you have the copper wire from the well, top of the well all the way down to the bottom. So you have 3 metals. They're all dissimilar. That means that the potential for corrosion is enormous. And if you have wire nuts on there sitting in water, that connection is going to fail within a year. That means you're going to be pulling that well pump out again. So the only way to do it in my world would be to solder those wires, not use a wire nut, but use a ferrule, crimp it on, solder it, and then use the heat shrinkable tubing that would prevent that would make a watertight connection. That's how I would do it. Some people just use those ferrules because they're cheap. They're like 20 cents a piece. Use 3 of those, crimp them on, and then use electrical tape to seal the connection. That's crazy. Because the water in the well will seep into through the electrical tape and corrode those crimped on connections. And so you'll be pulling out the well pump, which is a half-a-day job for most people, just because of the use of those quick crimp-on connectors. Okay? So I suggest you consider getting a spare well pump control box. And a well pump could cost you between $150 and $500, depending. You can buy them on eBay. I have. And a well pump control box would be about $100. That has the capacitor, and that sits inside somewhere, either in your well house or in your basement or wherever your garage, wherever your well controls are. And a well pump pressure tank. Now, most people wouldn't go as far as getting a well pump pressure tank. But if you do, get a big one. Because the bigger that well pump pressure tank is, the less the well pump is going to have to cycle, the longer it's going to last. And looks like we're about out of time. Another broadcast, if you want, I'll tell you how to pressurize that tank so that it has the right pressure. Because I've never seen anybody pressurize one to the right pressure. That'll take a little bit of discussion. We'll do that another time. Class, above all honesty and integrity, what happens next is up to you.